So Kotyhoroshko is now wandering the world. Well, here is part two. This next Kotyhoroshko tale, which is Ukrainian, has elements of a Ukrainian story about Baba Yaga, or a Baba Yaga, since the name Baba Yaga gets bandied about in a lot of tales where sometimes she's nice, sometimes she's evil, sometimes there's three of them. So, a plethora of Baba Yagas. So, there are some elements here. There's also three other characters who, for some reason it's mentioned, they have powers where one could move mountains, one could uproot oak trees with his bare hands, one could part the waters, but they never use any of those powers, so they're not going to be part of this telling of the story. While traveling the world, Kotyhoroshko met three men. They were hunters, and he decided to fall in with them and hunt with them. And they were hunting in a forest one evening where they came upon a cabin, and it was empty. And they thought to spend the next few days there, hoping to take their chances with the hunting. And during the next 3 days, three of the four men would go hunting, while a different one each day stayed home in the hut to guard their belongings and cook the food. But repeatedly, a disheveled, dirty old man, a creature who he could have even been the domovoi who lived in the cabin, or domovik who lived in the cabin, the hearth spirit, would show up, beat the person who was stayed behind, tear a strip of flesh from his back with the intention of making a belt from it. Then he would hang this unfortunate hunter on a nail, and eventually, and he'd eat all the food. And eventually, the hunter that was hanging on the nail would work himself loose, and he would cover his back, for he was ashamed of what had happened to him. He'd been violated. And when Kotyhoroshko and the other two hunters returned, that hunter said nothing. This went on for 3 days. Each of the hunters ended up with the humiliation of being beaten by this hairy, dirty little man, having a piece of flesh ripped from his back, to be hung by a nail, and all the food eaten. And in each case, the hunter would say, I fell asleep, I'm sorry, I did not have time to cook. Well, now it's the fourth night, and Kotyhoroshko is the one to stay behind, or the fourth day. Kotyhoroshko is the one to stay behind in the cabin and prepare the meal. And this dirty, disheveled old man, who could possibly have been a domovik, appeared and attempted to beat Kotyhoroshko, but he did not know who he was dealing with. And Kotyhoroshko seized him, dragged him outside, and pinned his beard, squeezing it between two parts of an oak tree. And then he went back into the cabin to go about his business and prepare the meal. Well, this tiny, disheveled old man ripped up the tree he was pinned to, and he dragged it off into the forest. Kotyhoroshko did not know any of this was happening. Perhaps he was a noisy person in the kitchen. Well, now the three hunters returned, and they were surprised to see a meal, and Kotyhoroshko explained what had happened about this little old man. And The three hunters all looked embarrassed, did not make eye contact with each other or with Kotyhoroshko, but stared at the floor instead and muttered. And Kotyhoroshko took them outside. Let's go find him. And lo and behold, the tree is gone. But there's a trail, because apparently this little man was still trapped by the tree. He was just dragging it through the forest. So he left a trail. And the trail led to a pit. And Kotyhoroshko was suggesting, let's go in there. Let's go get him. And the other three were afraid. Well, Kotyhoroshko went in and he found that there was a princess trapped in there, and there was also a vast amount of treasure. And what he began to do is he began to hoist up treasure to the three hunters, and at last took the princess and fashioned a rope for her, and she was hauled up to the surface. And then the three hunters abandoned their boon companion, Kotyhoroshko. Kotyhoroshko began to realize after a time in this pit he wasn't alone. There were 6 little birds of some kind, 6 chicks. And a storm was coming, and what he did is he chose to cover the chicks with his own body and protected them. When the storm passed, a large bird returned, clearly the mother, and asked the chicks, "Who protected you?" The chicks all pointed at Kotyhoroshko. And the bird asked, what boon would you require? What would you want me to do for you?" "I want to get out of this pit." And the bird tried and felt weak and said, "I need 6 pieces of flesh, meat of some kind." Kotyhoroshko was a fine, strapping lad, very muscular, big calves. Without hesitation, he took a knife and he cut away pieces of his own calf, 6 pieces, and gave that to the bird. And the bird ate and then realized what Kotyhoroshko had done. She then began to cough up waters, but these were not just any waters, these were waters of life. And the waters of life were sprinkled upon Kotyhoroshko's wounded calf, and the calf healed. And the bird took him to the surface. Well, now Kotyhoroshko began to hunt the 3 hunters, and he found them, punished them, took the treasure, married the princess, and in some versions he forgave the 3 hunters who had betrayed him. In other versions, he did not. It is up for you to decide. Well, there's the stories of Little Pea. Until the next time, do pobачення. It was at the feast I heard this tale. There it was, I drank mead ale. Though it flowed down my beard, my mouth stayed dry, for never a drop passed my lips, swear I.